Illustrator Robert Nippoldt has visited the legendary scenes of the Roaring Twenties in Berlin and captured them in his work. Back then, Berlin was Europe's fun capital.
I did a lot of research in Berlin, but it was mostly in libraries and archives. I tried to form an image of Berlin based on photos, old book covers, magazines and newspapers. But of course, I also crisscrossed the city. For instance, passing through Brandenburg Gate and thinking, wow, the great thing about Berlin is you can feel the history wherever you go.
Nippoldt has made history come alive again in 765 illustrations. His work, entitled Night Falls on Berlin in the Roaring Twenties, depicts the big city lights, dancers backstage, and performing at the city's famous cabaret venues. The mood in the metropolis is one of sinful pleasure. Nippoldt worked for 5 years together with the writer Boris Pofalla to recreate this lost era.
I tried to capture the atmosphere from back then, the nightlife and the partying in my drawing style. It was great fun exploring that visually.
Ja, das war total schön, sich damit visuell auseinanderzusetzen.
1920s Berlin is featured both in the accompanying exhibition to the book and in film. The TV series Babylon Berlin enjoys worldwide success.
I think interest has continued because these things are simply still valid. What was important and fashionable in the 1920s, the things people read and watched, are still legitimate. When you see the films from the period, they have an unbelievable energy. Those silent films simply blow you away.
In the book, it's the texts by Boris Pofalla and the illustrations by Robert Nippoldt that bring 1920s Berlin alive again. It comes with an accompanying music CD. But the 1920s weren't just about hedonism. This was an era of sweeping change in many respects. Politics, work, poverty, sport, and fashion.
The Roaring Twenties were only a golden age in the city for one specific group. For most other people, they were very dark, difficult years. Most people had no social support network and didn't really have much to laugh about. Still, nightlife was extremely important.
For the first time, the stars of this decade were women. People like actress Marlene Dietrich and dancer Josephine Baker. Night Falls on Berlin pays homage to female pioneers such as Thea von Habu, one of the most successful women in the film business, or Thea Alba, whose mental acrobatics astonished cabaret audiences.
There were really great authors and artists, both men and women. There were a lot of female protagonists, if we think about them now, who achieved significant things. It was a very modern time.
The black and white illustrations depict the contradictions of a time when people partied, even though the nightmare of the Third Reich was quickly approaching. The era was extremely glamorous, but also sinister. People were dancing on the edge of an abyss or a volcano, and the book really gets that across.
The graphic elements are really something. They're unique. This guy can really draw. And I think the hard black and white lines of the drawings capture the mood very clearly.
I like drawing in black and white. Stark moods in the shading and contrast are part of my style. But I also think that fits perfectly with the age, because this was a time of contrasts. There was glamour and there was misery.
A city of sweeping change poised on the brink of a catastrophe, Berlin in the 1920s.